Publishers Association, we welcome you to this special briefing with the White House. And we're so honored to have the Honorable Cedric Richmond, Senior Advisor to President Biden and Director of the Office of Public Engagement. I'm also pleased to be joined today with the Chair of our board, Chair Karen Carter Richards, publisher of the Houston Forward Times, and our Chair Emeritus, the distinguished publisher of the Los Angeles Sentinel, Danny Bakewell Sr. Karen, our chair, would you give some opening remarks? And then after Danny, we will bring the Honorable Cedric Richmond to the Black Press of America.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chavis. Congressman Cedric Richmond, on behalf of the Black Press of America, the NMPA, congratulations to you. We're so proud of you. We would like to thank you for this special virtual White House briefing for the Black Press of America to share with us highlights of the Biden-Harris administration commitment to the African-American community. We look forward to this ongoing series of briefings specifically for NMPA. Again, thank you to the Office of Public Engagement for this opportunity. And I'd like to thank the NMPA officials, publishers, and journalists who have joined us today. Thank you.
Very good. Chair Emeritus Danny Bakewell Sr., you're known all over the country for your great work. Please give your opening remarks.
Well, I'd just like to thank the Honorable Cedric Richmond, who is not only a distinguished friend in terms of what he is leading in the Biden-Harris administration, but a longtime friend, personally and of the Black press. This is not a new safari for Cedric Richmond. He knows the Black press, he's engaged with the Black press, and he's always supported the Black press. So we are really in good hands, and we look forward to the things that he can do for us. He knows the pain that the Black press has consistently suffered over the many, many years, in spite of our good work, in terms of being denied and deprived of adequate, equitable advertising. And he's always talked about his commitment and his ability to have the power to do this. Now he has that, and now we see one of the first things on his agenda for the Biden-Harris administration is engaging with the Black press, and we want to talk about advertising.
All right, very good. Cedric, let me just tell you who else is on the virtual call. We have our entire board of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, 17 members, made up of our executive committee, I would note, who are all sisters, Black women, at the head of the board of the NMPA. And we also have the executive committee of the NMPA Fund, which is our 501c3. We have 5 regions. All of our 5 regional presidents are also on this call. So, Brother Richmond, thank you so much. I just want to salute your staff in helping to put this event together on short notice. And I've met many of them during the campaign last year, Trey Baker, Cameron Trimble, Jennifer Molina, and others. I just want to note when I see people with good staff, I want to give the staff a shout out. You got a good staff, man, working with you. But please give us your opening remarks. And I know your agenda is tight, but specifically tell us about the commitments of the Biden-Harris administration to the African-American community.
Let me start off by thanking NMPA for what you do. And not everybody knows it, so I'll take a second and just let people know. You tell the unvarnished truth. You give it to us unedited. In many places, that is the most reliable news that people can get, whether they're picking up a copy when they leave church, whether they're picking up a copy when they leave their local corner store or grocery store, or in my case, whether they're leaving their Black bank in New Orleans. This is where they pick up the information that they know that they can trust. And so when I think about NMPA, I think about Louisiana Weekly in New Orleans. I think about the Data News Weekly in New Orleans. I think about the New Orleans Tribune, which is not an NMPA member, but they are telling the truth and doing hard work. And at the same time, they're active members in the community. And so that's what you do. And the news that you deliver to people that this may be their only outlet to getting the news. And so I believe that with that becomes recognition that you reach audiences that other people can't reach, which means that there's a niche created, and that to me, there's value in that niche. And so our administration right now, one, you may hear me say this more than once on this conversation, is that you should judge people by their actions in the past. And on the campaign trail, President Biden made himself available to you all because it was important. And when you saw his investment, he made investments because it was important. And so now that we're in the job of governing, if you just take COVID-19, for example, and our dire need to get everybody vaccinated, we do know that there's real skepticism in this country. There's real skepticism in the Black community. And you can't say that it's not without some basis in reality. So if you look at the Tuskegee experiment, you look at generally how African Americans are being treated, you now want people to just believe that the government has their well-being in mind. And the fact that it was created in 10 months with a president who was not fully transparent or believable, we know we have work to do to build up the trust in the African American community so that they take the vaccine. And look, in order for us to heal and get past this health pandemic and economic crisis, people have to take the vaccine. I've had it, my mother's had it. And so, look, I believe in the science, but part of what it's going to take is us being very transparent, giving the facts of how and the science of how this vaccine, both Moderna and Pfizer, were created over 10 months when vaccines usually take a couple of years. We're willing to do all of that. And we have to do it in outlets that people believe. And we're going to give you the science. We're going to give you the facts so that you can make those determinations. The other thing is we're going to talk about how important the American Rescue Plan is, not only to the African American community, but the country. And so if we don't pass this plan, we stand to lose another 4 million jobs this year. And if we don't pass this plan, Black poverty is expected to be around 20% this year. If we pass this plan, it's reduced by a third. And so we get somewhere around 13%. And so this plan has real consequences for a number of communities. I mean, if it drops the poverty rate in the Hispanic community by nearly 40%. And so we want to invest in our communities, but it also gives us the ability to wrap our arms around the crisis, provide vaccines. We want to create mobile vaccination centers so we can go to hard to reach communities. We want to use our FQHCs, our community health centers, to do vaccines. Look, we want to make sure that we spend all of our effort, our time and energy right now on making sure we can get past this pandemic, because it is no secret that when America has a cold, the Black community has a flu. And so we have to look at this in a comprehensive manner, and we cannot do it without the help of NMPA.
Well, thank you. And that's a good segue. Our first question is about advertising, but I just want to pinpoint something. Right now, the CDC has messaging dollars that they're spending to get the message out. Health and Human Services also. What can we do to engage more of the Black press sector to help the administration get this word out? I think that in the past, at least over the last 4 years, there was very little, I mean, less than a crumb off the table that came from these agencies that are spending money to get words out, like on the COVID-19, but the Black press has been relatively left out. How can we correct that?
Well, I think you've started on that today, but here's the truth of the matter. And I want people listening, because look, we're going to have people that say, oh, this is preferential treatment. Oh, this is some sort of giveaway or some sort of set aside. We have to reach everybody in this country. You all reach people that other newspapers, other outlets, other means of communication does not reach. And you reach it with a level of credibility that others may not have. So look, it is vital for us to get our hands around this. that we include you. And look, we're not going to ask you to do it for free. There's some things we are going to ask you to do for free in terms of public service announcements on certain things. But to the extent that we are advertising, I think you all should be a key component of it, because again, in Black and brown areas, there are outlets that are unique to them that we should be advertising in.
Very good. In preparation, because we know the time is limited, we asked our publishers from around the country to submit questions. And of course, they're in the order. So this is the top question. President Biden has stated his commitment to racial justice and economic equity. The NNPA, as we've stated, represents the Black press of America. We are independent, local, and regional African-American owned news and media businesses. Can you confirm, Brother Richmond, that the Biden-Harris administration will ensure that President Biden's recent executive orders on racial justice and equity will be enforced and specifically implemented by all of the administration's cabinet departments, agencies, and other federal instrumentalities with respect to a whole of government commitment to advertise and spend with African-American and other people of color news and business, media businesses?
Look, that's a great question, Dr. Chavis. This is part of where I would say, let past actions give you an inference. But let me just start with how serious the president is on racial equity. On his first day, one of his executive orders was establishing a whole of government plan on racial equity. And that is holding every agency, every department accountable, and finding out where we are now and moving towards progress. And so it will be housed in DPC. Ambassador Rice will be in charge of it, and he gave it to Ambassador Rice because she is phenomenal, and I will assist her in any way that I can. But we are absolutely dead serious about racial equity. And so if you look at that executive order, it said exactly what he said on the campaign, that I am going to make this a priority through the whole of government, that this is going to be something that we monitor, we look at, and we're going to move the ball. And then if you look just a couple of days after he signed that executive order, he gave a speech on racial equity. And that speech basically said, I said I was going to do this. I did it on the first day. And this is where I'm headed in the future. And that is to invest in our HBCUs. That is to root out systemic racism in home ownership and housing so that Black families and brown families can create equity in those homes so that they can start businesses, put children through college, all of those things that come with home ownership, including transferring wealth to the next generation. He promised to end the use of private prisons. He signed that executive order. And then he signed one on the increase and rise in xenophobia and making sure that we combat that too, along with rescinding the Muslim ban. So the president is serious about this. And when we start talking about government procurement, that is one of the areas that we're going to monitor and make sure that the playing field is level and that we are using real metrics in terms of who we use, how we use them. And, I'm not sure. I am a lawyer, but I'm not versed in government procurement. I don't know if I can tell you right here, right now, that there's some program that we will set up, but I can just tell you one thing, that all of the agencies understand that this president is serious about racial equity and broadening the scope of people that do procurement and provide goods and services within government. And I'll just close with this so you all will understand what I'm saying. If you look at the president's Build Back Better plan, his Buy America executive order that he created, there was racial equity components throughout his Buy America. It wasn't just Buy American, it was Buy American and do it through a lens of racial equity also. So we're going to be consistent about that through the administration.
Very good. And that's good to hear. Both Danny Bakewell and Colonel Carter Richards working with me. They're going to be our point people working on this. Can you tell us, is there somebody on your staff that we can work on, Susan Wright's staff, or together? We want to make sure we really follow up on this because this is vital to the sustainability of our newspapers.
Yeah, our newspapers are actually dying on the vine. because we give a lot of lip service, and I'm not speaking about you or the administration, but there's always a lot of lip service and a recognition that we are deprived of advertising. But in the federal government alone, there is hundreds of millions of dollars of advertising being executed each and every year, and we get virtually none of it. And we don't need a preference. All we need is to have proportionate ability to be able to access according to our percentages in the country. You know, Black people represent 15% of the population. If you go to the service, we represent 50% of the people in the service. If you deal with how the COVID is affecting, we know it's affecting our community more than anybody else. No matter what metric you use, we have to be included, but we're not. And that's what we really, really need your cogent attention to. I mean, it's a dire need, Cedric, for this to happen.
And look, you're right. And so just like we partnered together when I was chair of the CBC to raise this issue, unfortunately during a hostile administration, it didn't go far, but we did push the envelope on all of those 3 and 4 letter organizations that do campaigning around the country. And so look, you know, all I can say is that you have a friend, you have an advocate, and I know the need and role that the Black press plays in communities, and especially in this highlighted time and fragile time of making sure that people take the vaccines, making sure people know how to get them, make sure they know where to get them, make sure they know to get them. All of those things are important, and we're going to need your help.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to work with you on this issue because that's vital, as Brother Bakewell has stated. Another question from our publishers is that during the 2020 year, last year, there was inconclusive strategies about the accuracy of the 2020 U.S. Census. In many of our communities, particularly in the communities that we serve through the Black press, we believe that there was a systematic undercount of African Americans during the gathering of the census last year. Does the Biden-Harris administration have a plan to verify the accuracy of the 2020 census or any possible recounts so that our communities will not be undercounted?
Look, a couple things on that. One, we understand the importance of the census. It dictates how we reapportion government, dictates how we redraw lines during redistricting. And we know that it dictates what communities get federal funds and how much. And so, no, we don't trust this last census that was done being as fair and accurate and inclusive as it should be. First thing we have to do is appoint a director of the census. And then we'll follow the procedures from there after we appoint a director. But you saw the president already issue an executive order on the census because the last administration decided that they would not count everyone that was in the country. And so that shows where we are on it. And then I think that when a census director is appointed, you'll see the seriousness of which we take making sure every community is counted completely.
Very good. Brother Richmond, what are your top 3 priorities of the Office of Public Engagement with respect to the African American community?
Look, in terms of the African American community, we want to make sure that people don't just come to the African American community for output, that they come to the African American community for input also, and that people understand that the African American community, just like brown communities, they should be co-architects in their future. You're not going to help us or help the Black community in spite of the Black community. There are thought leaders. There are other people out there that have spent a lot of time either in the community or in the classroom or in strategy meetings, figuring out how to move communities forward. And we want to make sure that they're at the table. And so that's where we are in terms of the Office of Public Engagement and making sure that we engage with the African American community. But the other part is making sure that, one, the African American community is not left behind by the COVID response. and that as we invest in the future and invest in people, that we're investing in our communities.
Very good. This next question is a two-part question. Has the Biden-Harris administration received a comprehensive list of issues that impact the quality of life of the African American community, such as a national Black agenda? If so, can you share with us the major issues of that agenda that have been raised? And if not, are you open to receiving a national Black agenda for consideration by the Biden-Harris administration?
Yeah, I have a couple answers to that too. The short answer is yes. And we have received many policy papers on what can and should be done to help the African-American community. Some highlight more of the issues that is facing than others, but they all provide a blueprint for addressing those issues. So from the Urban League to the NAACP to Color of Change to Black Lives Matter to the Black Lives Movement, all of, I will say this about the African-American community, our activists out there, our young activists, our seasoned activists and leaders. Everybody's been thought leaders on getting us to an agenda. And so during the campaign, you saw the president himself create his own agenda for the Black community based off of research and papers and policies done by a number of people, which was his Lift Every Voice plan. And so we're focusing on a number of areas after mentioning all those plans. One, when you talk about equity in the community, the president is very clear. Equity does not start and end with criminal justice reform. It ends with helping our entrepreneurs and our small businesses have access to capital. And with that, he's already said he wants to start a $30 billion fund that he's going to leverage 5-to-1 and create $150 billion worth of capital out there for African-American businesses. He wants to almost triple the funding in Title I schools so that schools in poor communities and communities that disproportionately house African-American students, that their resources are not 1/3 of what communities in more affluent neighborhoods have. He wants to raise teacher pay. He wants to embark on criminal justice reform. He wants to embark on policing reform. He spoke up after George Floyd and other Breonna Taylor and other incidents over the last course of the year, but he reiterated in his speech and in his inaugural that this is going to be an issue he deals with. And so I like the fact that we are looking at a number of issues, because far too often when it came to a Black agenda, people thought it started and ended with criminal justice reform. And we know it does not. Criminal justice reform and policing, those are highlighted and magnified by failures in the front on education, on police, on education, on investment in the Black community, and by systemic racism in government and other places. And that's why our whole of government order says that we're going to root out systemic racism in all of government, and we're going to do that immediately from day one.
Very good. Well, you can count on the Black press to be there to report all of those actions. We're grateful for this briefing. Do you plan to arrange and to commit to having regular White House briefings for the Black press to assess the progress on the announced commitments and goals to achieve equity for Black American, for other people of color?
Look, I'd love to be able to commit for the whole White House, but I know I can commit for me, and we can do this on a regular basis. And I'm sure that the press shop would do it. But I think what's important is to have metrics that we're using to judge our progress. And so that's why it was important for us. So for us to go through government-wide and establish and develop some baseline metrics of where we are right now, because we have to move the ball forward and we have to know and measure our progress. And so I think it would be a good thing for us to get together periodically so that we can monitor the press progress, and we can continue to push for things that the administration need, and we can continue to find areas in which we need to do better.
Well, thank you. Access is so key. so that we can reach you and get others in the White House. We're trying to get the credentials from the White House Press Association. I know that's a different organization, but we ran into some challenges. The people running the White House Press Association didn't even know what our entities were, and because they kind of cater to the mainstream. But I think it's so important to have the Black press represented in the White House briefings. I'm talking about daily, as well as on special events. So we'll be dealing with some of your staff to maybe you can help us make sure that there's a little bit more diversity and inclusion in the formal White House briefings. But I can move on. One of our publishers wanted to know, what is the Biden-Harris administration's stance, and are you committed to support DC statehood?
I think it's clear that the president has supported DC statehood in the past, and I don't know or have any information that has changed. It's been a public position of his before.
Very good. How will the Biden-Harris administration increase support for the nation's historically Black colleges and universities? And what steps will you take to bring, or actually to bridge the widening education gap in the public schools? Our young people are experiencing, even during the COVID-19, a lot of disparities, a lot of hardship in the public schools, but also our HBCUs need help.
Well, K through 12, that's why it's important that we triple Title I funding. That will be a key component to not leveling the playing field, but actually creating some equity in that space and making sure that the communities who need the money the most get the most. And so that is important for us. And then the first part of the question about HBCUs, how do we get them more money? Well, we get them more money and we put more money in the budget for them. We do the things that are necessary to help them. And the president made that commitment during the campaign. He knows the value of HBCUs in this country. If you just look at where he was, and you know, I'm not flippant when I say look at people's past action to determine their future action. But Delaware State is very important to him. And if you look at President Allen from Delaware State, he was the CEO of the inauguration. He knows the talent and at HBCUs. And the other thing that he knows, and this administration knows, is the great talent that HBCUs have produced, the technology and the contribution that HBCUs have made to society with limited funds compared to other public universities. And so we're imagining, and he said it in his speech, imagine if the HBCUs had their fair share of funding, how much more they can do compared to the incredibly great job that they're doing now in producing our doctors, our teachers, our lawyers, engineers, all of those things. And so we know it. We're going to invest there because they are doing an excellent job with limited funding. And we want them to do an even greater job with their fair share of funding.
Very good. The next question is about reparations. Where does the Biden-Harris administration stand on the enactment of H.R. 40? That's the bill to create a study commission on reparations. And if it doesn't get through the Senate, will the president issue an executive order to establish a national reparations commission?
Well, we have two things on that. One, we do support a commission in H.R. 40. Two, we know we can't wait. And maybe it's three things. And three, we have to start acting now. We don't need a study to tell us there's systemic racism out there. We don't need a study to tell us that redlining and Black communities have been treated a lot different. If I think the president, you know, and I traveled with him throughout the campaign, I know I've heard this speech a million times that a home in a Black neighborhood built the same way, same material, is going to be worth almost 30% less than the same home in a white neighborhood. And those are the things we want to deal with. And so we don't need a study to tell us that we support a study. But the truth of the matter is we don't think the Black community should have to wait on the study. We need to start dealing with systemic racism in housing and education and all of those things right now, which is part of the plan that we laid out, and including in entrepreneurship, access to capital, and all of those things. So yeah, we support a study, but it's not going to stop us from acting right now.
Thank you. This week, the president has met with Republicans. He's met with Democrats about the American Recovery Act, about the $1.9 trillion that's on the table for legislation. Can you explain to Black America how important the 1.9 trillion figure is, and where does the Black community fit in this if it's passed by the Congress of the United States?
Well, it's really important. When we start talking about money for mobile vaccination clinics, when we start talking about using community health centers so that we can get to every neighborhood to make sure people has access to the vaccine, we're also talking about increasing the earned income tax credit, increasing the child tax credit. Those two things alone would reduce child poverty in this country by almost half. And so that's a fundamental and monumental change in communities of color and in the Black community. And so there's a large list, and part of our American Rescue Plan is the importance of that racial equity is written throughout that also. Because as we look at COVID-19, we know that it's African-American communities, brown communities, that are bearing the brunt of it, more likely to not survive it. And then if you look at the economic aspects of it, we're bearing the brunt of that also. And so we want to make sure that we deal with it all. And look, also, you have to look at children and getting them back in the classroom, because parents can't go to work if they have to do virtual schooling. And so that's $130 billion that we have in the plan so that we can get children back in the classroom in a safe manner, so that we protect the teachers and their families that they go home to. And those are things that we're going to have to do in terms of testing, in terms of smaller classroom sizes, better ventilation, and the infrastructure of partitions. And not to mention the most popular part of the plan, which is $1,400 checks to put in people's pocket right now to help them through these hard times. And so those are all key components that I think go across the board, but are valuable to the African-American community. And the last three things I'll say about it is it expands unemployment insurance past March 15th, because we know some jobs are not coming back right now. It extends the foreclosure and eviction moratorium. And so those things are important. And that's why we are doing our best in exerting all our energy into trying to pass it, but pass it now. We've watched Congress pass 5 recovery bills for COVID. I was there. I participated in all 5. All 5 have one thing in common. They were all too little, too late to make a difference in the lives of the American people. So we're not going to make that mistake. We want to do it right now, because we know, and you all know probably better than we do, that there are too many people out there that are breaking their backs in order to keep a roof over their head, clothes on their back, and food on the table. Government has to help them.
Absolutely. Well, now that the Democrats control the House, control the Senate, and a shout out to Georgia for turning out that tremendous Black vote. And now we have 2 new senators from Georgia. But you control the White House, the Senate, and the House. So when can we expect the $1.9 trillion bill to be enacted?
Look, I don't have a hard date. What we know is important is that it happened before March 15th, when all of these cliffs hit the American people, or when the American people hit the cliff.
Can you explain that a little deeper about the deadline of March 15th?
March 15th is when unemployment insurance, the enhanced unemployment insurance, runs out. It's when the foreclosure and the eviction moratorium stop. And if we don't give the American people help before then many will be facing evictions and foreclosures. Many will be left without unemployment insurance, but more importantly, they won't have a job they can go to if they wanted to. And so if we don't pass it, we're going to lose 4 million jobs this year. And so that's why it's so important to do it before that date. But we want it done as quickly as possible. So you saw both the Senate and the House pass the initial steps so that we could start refining and creating the bill. And so we're going to keep moving. And look, full disclosure, we are doing outreach to our Republican members in the House and the Senate because we want them to come along with us. But we're not going to compromise our values, and we're not going to delay aid to the American people. This bill is already bipartisan. There are Republican mayors all around this country that support it, Republican elected officials all around this country. And by the way, 50% of Republicans in the country support the American Rescue Plan. So it's bipartisan, and we won't let Congress hold us hostage in delivering help to the American people. So we're trying to get it done as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Well, before we wrap up, I want to call back to Dana Bakewell and to our chair, Karen Carter Richards, for their closing comments or remarks or questions. Dana? Unmute Dana, yes, okay. There we go.
Cedric, again, thanks for this briefing. I just want to ask one question. Do you think it's appropriate, and do you think that you can persuade the president to sign an executive order specifically dealing with advertising in the federal government? That is crucial to us. And this does not need a new budget allocation. This is just equitably distributing the advertising that's already there. And it would be a flood of money coming into the Black community. It's one thing to say we need to support COVID. We need to give the proper messages to Black people. We can do that. We consistently do that. I can't impress upon you enough, and you and I have had this conversation many times. These publishers on this call, we need advertising. That is the lifeline and the lifeblood of our Black businesses going forward. There is no Black community, no entity within the Black community, the Black church, Black business. Everybody comes first and foremost to the Black press. Even before you're known nationally, they are known within the Black community because of the Black press. We need help. We appreciate everything you're doing. But my specific question is, do you think the president will ink an executive order related to advertise? It could just be equitable advertising within the federal government, because it doesn't exist. You're talking about a baseline. The baseline will show we are on zero.
Danny, the short answer is I don't know if he can issue an executive order on procurement. There are some rules there. However, I know what I've said before is that we can stress racial equity, and I'm not ruling it out. I just don't know if it's legal. But let me go to your second point. When you talk about the need of the Black press right now, I think it's two things. It's not just the needs of the Black press and that you need it. I think the real point is that you deserve it, and that you've earned it, and that you have audiences that you talk to that other people can't talk to. Therefore, you provide a good and a service that other people can't survive. Because I don't want anybody who is deciding to take a clip of this audio and put it on any particular network and make it seem like we're just trying to bail out any particular industry because they have needs. That is not the case here. The Black press has earned this. They deserve it. They reach communities and people that we can't reach as a government or mainstream press. And if we're going to get our arms around this pandemic, is we're going to continue to recruit for the Army and the armed services, right. And whether we're going to do the census, whether we're going to do it for health and human services, all across government. If we're going to make government accessible to everybody, first they have to know it's there. Hey. And that's why I believe that you all have earned it by showing that you reach people that other outlets don't reach.
Very good.
We only want equity and reciprocity, nothing.
Absolutely. Exactly. Very good. Thank you, Danny. And Congressman Richmond, thank you for that sober response. And I always say that when you ask a sober question, you get a sober response. Now we want sober action to make sure that we see progress in this, because this has been a lasting problem of many administrations. And I think the Biden-Harris administration prides itself for being the most diverse and inclusive administration in the history of America. And what Dan is saying is, if there's anybody that's going to do it, we should have it done now, where our Black press can be included. This is a business. We're not asking for charity. This is a business proposition where we can do the work that others have purported to do, but we know that we do so effectively and efficiently through the Black press. But Karen Carter Richards, our chair, want to give us some closing remarks before we thank Congressman Richmond.
I would just like to say, I don't want to go over again what Danny Bakewell and Dr. Chavis have said, but definitely we are the team that can do the outreach in our community. And so with that, I would just say that we really thank you for this opportunity. We're looking forward to more briefings so that we can get this information out to our communities. Thank you again.
So Congressman Richmond, thank you again. My last question to you, and we have some of our major journalists, and they sent me a little note. Explain to us, how is it early last year, actually before last year, you saw the rise of a Joe Biden when hardly nobody else would stand with him. As a member of Congress, you begin to stand with Joe Biden. Explain to us, in sum, your relationship to the President of the United States. We know you have the title senior advisor, but give us a little deeper insight of your relationship with President Joe Biden.
Look, it started well before the 2018 midterms. Everybody was focused on taking back the House so that we could do good for the American people and we could stop the bad stuff in which the administration was doing. And all of the polling showed that we had a rock star out there that we were not using, and that was Joe Biden. And I called and said, hey, will you go campaign for all these candidates, Black candidates, white candidates? He was able to go campaign for everybody. And what I saw with the results of those races was that he had appeal across the board and that he was the real deal, that he meant it. And so after that, that's when we started talking, and it was more me saying you should run than him saying I want to run. And then Charlottesville happened. And he said, somebody has to stop this guy. And, he genuinely thought that he was probably best positioned or could be the only one that was positioned. And I felt in my heart that he was the only one that could beat Donald Trump. But more importantly, I got to know him and I got to know who he was. And so if I didn't believe in him, if I didn't believe he wasn't dead serious about racial equity and empowering people and taking up for those who have been marginalized, I wouldn't have left a safe seat in Congress to join the administration and become a staffer among others. But I really, after spending all that time with him, I know what he wants to do. And I want to be a part of being that transformational administration. And so far, he's lived up to everything he said. He said he was going to have the most diverse cabinet in the history of America, and we have that. And so now I want to, and we will move on as an administration to real economic empowerment and changing other aspects. So we became good friends, and I just believe in what he wants to do. And being on the campaign trail, I actually got to see it over and over again, that he's the same person in front of the cameras that he is behind the cameras. And look, sometimes that helps us, sometimes that hurts us, but he is exactly who he appears to be. And he's just genuine and authentic. And so we need somebody who's going to be a friend to the Black and brown communities around this country to make sure that they have an advocate at the highest level of government that will hold all of government responsible for righting the wrongs of the past. And so, that's how I got here. And I don't regret it. I think that this is going to be a great administration. And I don't want to stop this without talking about the historic rock star nature of our vice president. She is the real deal. She cares about all communities, but she is an intellectual giant. But more than that, the highest compliment that I give to elected officials is that she gets it. She gets the struggle of Black people. She gets the struggle of minorities. And she is spending her days figuring out how to help all communities, but to make sure that she does not forget where she started representing people. So she's been phenomenal to work with. And I was impressed with her on the campaign trail, but I'm more impressed with her as I get a chance to see her work every day.
Very good. Well, our time has expired, but I want to, on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we have 230 member publishers now. Over 200 are watching this program today and this briefing. And we want to thank you, Cedric Richmond. We look forward to the next briefing. In the meantime, please count on, we're going to count on you, and I want you to count on us. There's reciprocity. You know, we're going to do our job, help you get the messaging out. We know that the American Rescue Plan is so important, and if there's anything that we can do to help get it through Congress in terms of raising public awareness, you can count on us. But for this briefing, thank you on behalf of the Black Press of America, and may God bless you. May God bless the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the whole cabinet, and may God